Hi everybody. Good morning. And should I close the door?
You can, yeah, if you, yeah.
You feel uncomfortable?
And because I knew that Panos is going to present me, I prepared some slides about our school, and I'm going to give the introduction to behavioral ethics, or in other words, welcome to our behavioral ethics lab, and show you what we are doing and what is the field of behavioral ethics. But before this, I'm part, like you have this laboratory, I and Guy, who is here, part of the DICE at IDC laboratory. It's a decision-making research center that we established at Herzliya. It's nearby Tel Aviv. It's an international school. It's include also, we have some students from Denmark, so you're welcome. It's a very nice place near the beach, and you can see this is, of course, Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, so you're all welcome to Israel. Where to start? So, early research on ethics before the field of behavioral ethics focus either on moral development perspective or on philosophical approach, and the main question in these fields is how people should act when resolving ethical dilemma. So, for example, I'm sure that a lot of you are familiar with this truly dilemma. And the dilemma is that imagine that you are this man, and you know that the train is driving, and this worker didn't knew about this train, and that they cannot move. And then you have the dilemma, because this is the trail of the train, but if you switch and divert the train to the other trail, then instead of killing 5 people, you will kill only 1 poor worker. So, and the dilemma when we ask students and people is, are you going to switch? What do you think?
Yes.
Are you going to switch to kill 1 instead of 5? So it's become even more complicated in this version of the dilemma, because here you are on, it's called the Footbridge Dilemma, and you are the same person, and again you have the dilemma because the train is going to kill the 5 workers, but if you are going to push this heavy guy, that the innocent guy, then it will stop the train and you will save the 5 workers. Are you going to push this guy? So it turned out that a lot of people think that they are going to switch but not push. Why? It's the same situation, and we see that the situational factor change our ethical decision. More than that, if I will take an example from real life, a lot of time when we think about ethical dilemma, we think about what we are doing in the ideal situation. But then our actual behavior is really different from our decision or our ethical values. So I want to show you a short campaign. Do you know who is this person? Someone have a clue? Okay. So this person was actually, he wants to be the governor of New York. Not New York the city, but New York the state. And his name is Eliot Spitzer. And this is his campaign. I want to show you a short video.
What I'm most proud of as Attorney General is that we were willing to walk into the buzzsaw of some very powerful interests and never back down. Look, I had a simple rule. I never asked if the case was popular or unpopular. Never asked if it was big or small, hard or easy. I simply asked if it was right or wrong. In the end, it's not a bad rule. Spitzer for governor.
God, seriously, these Hollywood things.
Okay, so according to Spitzer, it's not a bad rule. You don't ask if it's popular or unpopular, it only asks if it's right or wrong. So according to him, we know what is the difference between right and wrong. Yes? And by the way, he was elected and he was a very successful politician. He was known in his fight against illegal businesses and against some financial cartel, and he did great. Some people start to talk about him as a candidate for the president in the coming future. But then it turned out what's called in the US scandal of client number 9. It turned out that Spitzer, when he went to conferences, he used to invite consistently the same woman who work in one of these illegal business. And he has a love, not a love affair, but used to have a relationship with this woman, and he was known in this illegal business as client number 9. This is the name of the scandal. So here you see him in his speech, in his resigned speech, and he said, I behave against my own value, against the values of my family and everything that I believe. And the question, I think, in behavioral ethics is why people behave against their own value, against the values that they believe they want to see themselves behave according to. And behavioral ethics, this is taken from a great paper of Bazerman and Gino, and who, if you want to know more about this field, I recommend to read this paper, is the study of the systematic and predictable ways in which individuals make ethical decisions and judge the ethical decision of others. So I will show you some methods. We do ethical decision in practice, actual decision, but also how people judge the decision of others. And also the interplay between our own ethical decision and how we judge other people. We focus on situations when ethical decisions of individuals are at odds with the benefit of the broader society. So when we have a conflict that in one side we want to benefit to ourselves, but on the other side we harm other people or the society as a whole, and also in situations that are at odds with our intuition, that we cannot predict very well our behavior in this kind of situation. And most important, behavioral ethics helps people to better understand their own behavior in the ethical domain and compare it to how they would ideally like to behave. So if I will go back, the early research in ethics believe that if people or students will work with this dilemma, they will understand how people should act when resolving ethical dilemma. But we see two problems. First, there are a lot of hidden forces that change our ethical decision, and the same dilemma, we get different decisions because of hidden forces in the situation. We want to understand these hidden forces. And also there is a big gap between our ideas and what we think we are going to do and our actual behavior. And when we think from this perspective, there is an apparent conflict. Because from a social psychology, we already know. How many of you are psychologists, by the way? Oh, not a lot. So, from social psychology research, there is a lot of research about how people perceive honesty and perceive credibility. And it turned out that people value honesty and morality very highly. People rate this as the most important personality trait. For example, if you want to recruit a worker to your lab or to your industry, to be honest is more important than to be intelligent, is more important than to be professional to people. People also believe that they are more honest than their peers and that they are working in more ethical organization compared to other organizations. But at the same time, it turned out that people lie and cheat much more often than they care to admit. Bella De Paulo, she was a social psychologist, and she started with this research when she asked people every night. She paid to participants for a longitude study, and she asked people every night to write the lies that they use during the day. Okay? Turned out that people in her study report on 1 to 2 lies per day. It's also possible that they lied in their reports, of course. But it's behavior that we consistently use every day. Yes. What we are doing in our field of the rapidly growing field of behavioral ethics, that we tempt people to cheat us in the lab. So we will show you all the day experiment that we give the people the opportunity to cheat us in order to increase their monetary incentive. And the robust finding, I will give you the main finding that you will see across a lot of talks, is that we don't see a lot of bad apples. This is the good news. We don't see people who take all the money and run away. But rather, we see a lot of people who cheat to a certain extent. Cheat for a little bit, cheat sometimes for a little bit, sometimes for a bigger extent. And the magnitude of cheating is very much depend not on the individual difference between people, but rather on the situational factor, on the environment. And we will show it. And before this, I want to show that it's not only in the lab, it's also in the field. So this is a kind of field study that I did on my student. I taught social psychology, and the class was in the morning, so a lot of students wants to sleep more. And then I tell that attendance in my class is mandatory, and after 5 absence, I try to retract their grade. And every class I distribute attendance sheet and ask them to sign. Okay, to sign near their name. And what you see here is the number of signature that I got every class in red, but in blue is the actual student that were in class. Okay? So you see here 2 main effects. First of all, I become less and less popular over the semester. You can see it. But in addition, there is a consistent gap between the number of people and the number of signatures. And the question is what people actually feel when they sign their friends. What do you think? Okay. Do you have any idea? Catherine, if you need to sign to Panos.
To Panos.
Yeah, for Panos. He write you, he SMS you, I cannot come today, I have to be with Dimitris. Can you sign my name? What do you feel?
Yeah, I would do this like, fuck you, of course. And it's a mixture of feeling guilty and but having a duty to a friend and saying like, well, of course. Yeah.
Okay. So we can justify our unethical behavior by a good deed. Okay? So I will talk about it and show you how we see it in our experiment. It's a very frequent strategy that we use. We justify our unethical behavior or our cheating by good deed or by the benefit that we give to close other or to the society as a whole. We focus on the good but not on the bad sides of our behavior. Before I show you some experiment, because this is introduction talk, I want to give you some data from the marketplace. So, and the data is actually what we call the dishonesty of honest people. It's not dishonesty of criminals that make a big scam like Bernie Madoff in US. Like the communication give a lot of attention to big scam like Bernie Madoff, for example. But here it's actually the damage of a lot of small dishonesty of what we call honest people, like regular people. So think about accounting scandal. Some accounting company with big scandal. Wardrobing, you know what is wardrobing? Is this phenomenon that people take a jacket and they have retail and they go to a wedding or to a party and then bring back the jacket and ask a refund for the jacket. And in fact, only this is evaluated by 16 billion per year in the US.
But what's the 16 in that?
What?
16 billion in losses to the
industry.
To the industry. But the people who do the wardrobing, they benefit.
They benefit $16 billion.
Yeah.
And and the insurance fraud is when
But that's
people
always the case. Like, what is the reasoning here? Like, if you don't pay tax,
No, but
you
those
also
numbers
benefit.
are trying to convince that it's very bad. That there's this is losses, 16 billion. It's not really losses, depending on your,
But that's also the same
It's
with
a
every
transfer.
cheating.
except with what? The
With
same
every
one.
cheating. I mean, with every.
True, so many of them.
yes, but
To the degree that there are transfers from one to the other, the problem is not the loss. The problem is the
Oh, you
violation
mean,
of an
the
ethical
loss.
rule,
Okay, you were.
and so on.
No, but this is another problem because often you think that in cheating behavior that it's a victimless crime. Right? It's very hard to understand who is the victim here. And many people think, who cares? I mean, they lose $16 billion on what? I mean, they get it back, so they didn't really lose.
so let's
Maybe sometimes it's unwearable, and maybe sometimes you use it without paying for it. So it is a loss, even though.
It's actually, you can even think about it as an efficient thing. Because they don't really need the jacket, they just need it once. So I just wear it once and they give it back and somebody else can use it. And I pay zero, so it's very
If you live
efficient
in a
for me.
different type of economy, you can do that. You borrow stuff, you make transactions, but we are
I'm just saying that, in my opinion, the main problem isn't necessarily the financial loss to one side, because that can be looked as a transfer. So the
Yeah,
problem is
I
the
guess-
ethical domain, which is not necessarily linked to the actual loss that one side
yes,
incurs.
but take for example insurance fraud. So insurance fraud is the phenomenon that, for example, people have a damage to their TV after they pay insurance for many years, and they report about the damage, ask for a refund, but instead of reporting about 32-inch TV, they report about 37-inch TV. Okay, so this is called insurance fraud. If you think about this, they take more money than they deserved from the insurance company, but who pay it? We pay it because it's coming back to the clients in the next year because the insurance company always need to gain. Okay? So if you think about it, all this small dishonest behavior actually chip away trust in the society, and we pay more for the same service. Tax deception is the same rationale. Employee theft and fraud from the workplace. And also people don't trust each other. So you are living in a country that have a very good trustworthy relationship in all the index that we look around the world, but the situation in other countries is much worse. And and this is what we call the cumulative damage of small dishonesty. And we need to remember, because the communication, as I told you, give a lot of attention to big criminal. But if you look on the cumulative damage, because this is small dishonesty, but a lot of people are doing it, it accumulates to a bigger societal damage. And also, big fraud or big scandals start from very small cheating. We have some evidence for in the lab what we call the slippery slope. So people don't start from stealing $2 million. They start from changing the number a little bit, and then they see that they can gain money, and then they continue, and there is a slippery slope. But it's this is why we think it's very much important to look on the small dishonest behavior and to understand the psychology underlying this behavior and how people justify this behavior. So what people actually feel when they sign their friend or when they are doing this small dishonest behavior. We recently used the term ethical dissonance. So ethical dissonance, it's describe the tension that arises from the inconsistency between people's actual dishonest behavior and their desire to maintain a positive moral self. So as I show you in social psychology, we want to perceive ourselves as honest people, as moral person, but on the other side, we want also to profit from dishonest behavior. And this actually creates a tension. We call this tension ethical dissonance. Of course, if you know psychology, the bigger term is cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance is inconsistency between attitude and behavior. For example, I really care about the environment, about green environment, but I have a big Jeep, okay, so make a pollution. And then I feel a dissonance. Then I need to solve this dissonance, and then I find some justification for why I own this big car, because I'm going to the nature and help to the environment again. So the same rationale happened in cheating behavior. I find justification to my behavior, and this is what we are doing. We are trying to understand how people bridge this gap. How can people profit from cheating behavior or from dishonest behavior, but at the same time perceive themselves as very moral. And we have many works that actually trying to describe the creative mechanism that people use to bridge this gap. So just to illustrate what we are doing, what people are doing, one example what people are doing, if it's all about moral balance. So people take advantage of ambiguous ethical code. They are doing something bad, for example, file the tax report and then put some expense that you did privately on your job or on your business, and then because you feel bad, because you feel that you should not do it, and you feel some guilt, you start to play with the ethical code, that no, it's not really bad, okay? Many people are doing it. So this is one example. I will show you how we do it in method, but before we, also in behavioral ethics, we have two competitive models. the more economic model that it's coming, of course, from the traditional economics, neoclassical economics, that assume that people are rational and selfish, and they always want to maximize their expected utility. And they are, according to this model, people all the time engage in cost-benefit analysis. So this model actually put the focus on external rewards. If I will show you to illustrate, this is external rewards. It's actually the external benefit, what I can benefit from unethical behavior, and what is the cost. And what is the cost is actually the punishment and the probability of being caught. And according to this model, we should expect higher level or higher magnitude of dishonesty or unethical behavior as the external reward is higher. So according to this model, if we want to reduce unethical behavior, we need to do one of two. Either to make the punishment more severe, more external enforcement and more severe, or to increase, just a moment, to increase the probability of being caught. So this is what we call the external enforcement model, or the economic model, and it's always focused on the external reward. That people, according to this model, people, if it's really benefit them and there is not a lot of probability of being caught and the punishment is not so threatened, then they will commit unethical behavior. But we see in our studies that a lot of time we don't have any probability of being caught. We give you to cheat us. And you see that other people cheat and don't get punished. Still, a lot of people don't cheat to the maximum extent possible or don't cheat at all. And the question, why? And the answer coming in the psychology model. So a psychological perspective put the focus not on the external rewards. We don't say that there is no external reward, but the focus is on what we call the internal rewards and how people perceive their rewards. And according to psychology model, people internalize norms and values of society, and they want, at least want, to behave according to these values. So when people actually commit unethical behavior, they feel a lot of guilt, they feel a lot of tension, as I call it. They feel ethical dissonance, and then they don't want this feeling, and this actually stop or decrease their unethical behavior. So if we think on these two models, external rewards or the economic model predict that as the external rewards will be higher, the magnitude of dishonest behavior will increase in linear function. On the other hand, if you just want to feel honest, just want to feel moral, you will not cheat at all. This is not what happened. We know that people cheat from time to time. And the behavioral ethics or models in behavioral ethics, Guy will talk about in more broadly, suggest something in between. For example, the self-concept maintenance. It's a model that says that we have a gray area that we can cheat, but we can justify our cheating. We can explain to ourselves why we are cheating. And in this area, people feel secure to commit unethical behavior. But also, the environment or the situational factor, and this is what I will show you in different methods, sometimes increase this gray area, and then we see a lot of cheating. This is what we call corrupted environment, that people don't know anymore what is the difference between right and wrong. But we can also create environment that the boundary between right and wrong are very clear, and there is no gray area at all. This is the ideal environment. And what we are trying to do in behavioral ethics is to map all the hidden forces that on one hand promote unethical behavior, and on the other hand can hinder or reduce unethical behavior, and help to people to understand what is the difference between right and wrong. So if we will understand all the forces, then we can create a good environment, a trustworthy environment, and we can promote and encourage moral behavior. So I want to show you some of our methods, or methods in unethical behavior, and I will go through my studying, but of course it's only example. Many very good people are working on this field, and also my experiment represent a group of scholars that are working on this area, led by Dan Ariely and also Francesca Gino from Harvard, and many other colleagues that collaborate with us on this field. So we want to put people in different group situations to see and tempt them to cheat us, and to see when they cheat us more and when they cheat us less. So the first experiment, or the first project, is a project that actually want to explore how one bad apple influence on the group as a whole. And as a part of a group, we are exposed to other dishonest behavior. Simple example include, for example, academic dishonesty. Have you heard about all the recent scandal in the academia that some people invent the results and cheat in their reports about effect? And the question is how it actually affects other people around. So think about maybe very famous Lance Armstrong. He was a world champion. He won the Tour de France 7 times in a row. And then it turned out that not only that he cheated, but also that for many years a lot of people around him and a lot of other competitors knew that he is cheating. So the question is actually how this unethical behavior of individual, sometimes of a leader, affect the behavior of other people. So for this, I will show you the first method. It's called the Mattresses Task. How many are you are familiar with this method? Okay. So I will show you this method. What we are trying to do in this task, it's a very simple math task. When we ask people to count and solve table, and okay, so it's look like this, and you need to find 2 numbers that add up to 10 in each of the tables. Can you find?
Yes.
Can you find?
Yeah.
Yes? What?
4.7, 5.3.
Very nice. So you found it, and then you check the box, and you go to the other tables. So this was relatively easy table. There are some tables that are more difficult. We can play with it. Sometimes we can put a table without 2 numbers that add up to 10, and then people waste time. But when we ask people to do it under time pressure, or like 5 minutes, most students in our experiments doing around between 7 to 8 tables. So it's just a performance task. Okay, it's a very simple task. It's not very much connected to intelligence. Some people are more quick, some other people are smart but are more slow. And this is the task. And we play this task in different conditions. So in the control condition, we just ask to people to solve this question in these matrices in 5 minutes, and then they come to the experimenter or to the RA, and the RA verified how many they really solved, and they get money. For example, we pay $1 for each matrices. So a student who solved 8 matrices get $8. It's nice, yes. You can eat lunch with this money. So this is the control group. In this experiment, we did a control group, and students actually solved on average 7 matrices. But in the cheating condition, or what we call the shredder condition, we do the same task, but instead of coming to the experiment, before you go to the experimenter, you shred your matrices page. And then you just report on how many. First you check it alone without the experimenter, you shred it. All of you know what is electric shredder. Like, it's look like this. You shred it, you trash it, okay? And then you come to the experimenter and say, Mr. Experimenter, I solved 7 matrices, okay? What do you think? How much on average students in very good university in the US, like Duke University, Stanford University, Harvard University, UNC University, many top universities in the US, how many they solved on average when they need first to shred it? What is your prediction? In the control, they solved 7. How many they solved after they shred it?
I would say around 12.
10.
Okay, 12.
That's what I would do.
Okay. So, you can be a good experimenter. You can predict what people will do. Okay. What?
No.
What?
It's almost 50% more. I mean, 40% or something. It's like quite. It's not very humble.
Yeah. So, as you see, shredder make people smarter. Yes. People report more. So now we play with it. Okay, we already got it in recent experiment, and in this specific experiment, we play with this condition. And in fact, these 2 conditions were only our control condition. The main condition was what we call the collaborator condition, and we hired an actor and a student for acting. This experiment was done. My colleague Francesca Gina, she was at the time the lab manager at Carnegie Mellon University, and she ran it in Carnegie Mellon University, and we actually hired an acting student and asked him to collaborate with us. And what he did, actually, when they get the 5 minutes, he stood up after 1 minute and said, Mr. Experimenter, it's a very easy task. I finish everything. What should I do? And then the experimenter said, okay, if you did everything, trash your matrices page, and then take the money. And this is exactly what he did. And then he take $20 because he said, I solved everything, and said to everybody, have a nice day. Okay? So everybody is witnesses now a cheater, someone who cheat to the maximum extent possible, because it's clear that after 1 minute, all of them solved 1 or 2. You cannot, it's not possible to solve all the 20.
Shahar,
Yes?
is the experimenter blind to the condition?
The experimenter?
Yes. Or he is an actor also, or he's just an experimenter who knows everything about the hypothesis?
No, he knows everything.
Okay.
Why it's important?
It's very important on the way that he reacts. If you have an actor saying, hey, I solved everything in 10 seconds, the experimenter, you know.
Yeah, but the experimenter, no, he
I mean,
was
it's
our.
important to have a double. It's
But
good
this
to have-
guy was our collaborator, and also the experimenter was our RA. So they came together to the experiment. They both of them are like the RA of the experiment, and the question is how people report after 5 minutes when they witnesses someone who did it. What is your prediction?
I don't know, 14?
Okay.
16. That's up to the mark. Really? Wouldn't you get more moral?
14. This guy, he is not my collaborator. Did you read the paper?
No.
Okay.
I'm just
Nice.
a big cheater.
Okay, so they report 14. Against, you see that they don't report still to the maximum extent possible. They report little bit. In fact, only 3 people in this group report on 20. So when we compare, there was 30 people, around 30 people in each condition. When we compare the distribution between the conditions, it's not that this average comes from these 3 people who cheat to 20. It's a lot of people move a little bit in the distribution and increase their report only by 1 or 2. And again, you see that the situational factor move people, but not to the maximum extent possible. We don't see a lot of bad apple. Even when they see example of bad apple, they restrict their cheating. This is what we call lie aversion. Okay, so people don't cheat to the maximum extent possible. But before this, how can we explain that people cheat more in the collaborator condition? We explain it both by psychological factor and by the economic model, because people actually witnesses an actor that cheat and didn't get any punished. So we increase the probability of being caught. So here still we can explain this result both with the psychological model and the economic model. But we did another condition to disentangle between these two models. In this condition, we have again the same actor and the same collaborator, but in this condition, it was in Carnegie Mellon University, and you know that in the state, they have in each city more than one university, and this university usually have rivalry on sport. For example, in Carnegie Mellon University, it's located in Pittsburgh, and there is a state university, University of Pittsburgh, that the two universities have a great football team, and they have rivalry between the two universities. Carnegie Mellon is more prestige, but the state university is bigger than Carnegie Mellon. So, in the additional condition, the collaborator did exactly the same. He stood up and said, Mr. Experimenter, I finished everything. What should I do? But in this condition, he also wore a University of Pittsburgh sweatshirt. And all the students in the class, in the lab, were from Carnegie Mellon. What do you think will happen? So, the cheater coming from outside, yes? from different university, from a rival university. What do you think will happen?
They're gonna cheat a lot more.
Even more?
I would say more.
Yes.
Even less because he's not like us. We're not like him.
How many?
I would say a lot less because it might even, I don't know, serve as a disincentive to really distinguish between the two groups that we're superior somehow. Maybe almost nothing.
Okay, so this is exactly what happened. So in this condition, people cheat not only less than the in-group collaborator condition, but even less than the only shredder condition. They still cheat, but statistically significant compared to the control when we verified, but only a little bit. It was almost eliminate the cheating. So what's happening here? First of all, it's actually rule out the economic explanation here, because he did exactly the same, and also this student signaled that the probability of being caught reduced. But here it changed our behavior, because how we explain it, people don't want to identify with this actor. They said, this is bad apple. We are not people like these people from Pittsburgh University. We are different. We call it distancing effect, okay? We want to distance the unethical behavior from ourselves, from our group, and actually to achieve a moral advantage compared to the other group. Okay. I want to show you a result from what we call people prediction, and to put your attention that to another possibility to do experiment, or we are doing it in a lot of our experiment in Dan's lab. What we are doing after we finish the experiment, we are describing the experiment to different people from different universities sometimes. We said, okay, we run experiment in Carnegie Mellon, okay? And we describe them in details, the experiment, and ask them, what do you think happened? In fact, sometimes we incentivize them and give them more money if their predictions are accurate. For example, you get all the money for the 2 conditions, but not for the 4th, yes? So, what happened in prediction study is actually that this is the prediction of students from UNC about our Carnegie Mellon experiment. And what we found that they correctly predict that people will cheat more, exactly like you. They predict that people will cheat more in the in-group, and they saw that people in the out-group confederate condition will cheat a little bit less. But actually this was the main mistake. What can we learn from this prediction study, or from this what we call intuition study? We can learn that this is our blind spot. This is what we call the hidden force that people don't expect will affect their ethical decision, but in fact, in actual behavior, it's make the difference, okay? So people can understand that when they can, in other words, people can predict in advance the cost-benefit analysis. They can understand that if I will see other people cheat without punish, maybe I will cheat a little bit more, or other people will cheat a little bit more. But they cannot predict the in-group, out-group effect, for example. This is a hidden force that we don't take into account and really play a major factor in our ethical decision.
Can you talk a little bit more about that? So what does this say about our intuitions and our real behavior?
No,
So
but
basically
wait.
we can predict individual behavior, because there is an issue only in the in-group, out-group, in the out-group condition, as you say, okay?
Yeah.
So basically we can predict very well how we would behave, as Juan did very
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
But then when it comes to distance himself
Yeah.
from an in-group or an out-group, for his in-group or his out-group, then he is not able to do it. He's saying, okay, I'm confused now, I don't know what I will do.
No, I think the question is, so UNC, maybe students at UNC are not sensitive enough to the rivalry between Carnegie Mellon and Pittsburgh University.
Yes.
But maybe if you ask them about Duke University versus UNC, because there's a huge rivalry there, they will make
They
a
can feel it
prediction.
better. Yeah.
So it's not about the fact that they can't
So it's even
predict.
it's even more particular.
It's about the fact that you're not always sensitive to the nuances of the out-group and in-group when you are not in either of groups.
Yes.
So I don't know who you hate here at Alphonse University, but maybe if we will ask you about that group, you will be more accurate in your
Yes,
prediction than
but
Pittsburgh and...
this is a possibility, but what I think across many studies where we run an intuition study, we find that a lot of time people are really sensitive to the cost-benefit analysis. So people believe or think that they are aware to the cost-benefit analysis, but they are not aware to what we call the hidden forces or the hidden psychological forces. When the forces are more complicated or more relate to psychological consideration, people don't really predict very well their behavior. Yes?
Is another way of saying that also that we basically overestimate or systematically overestimate our ability to be objective in the sense that we think that we're above that group
Yeah.
distancing, and so we think that all that wouldn't affect my behavior, but it actually, I mean, as social groups, has an extremely strong effect.
Yeah, we overweight the economic consideration and underweight the justification or the psychology.
Yeah, and more generally we do think that we're more rational than we really are. So in all prediction experiments, when we ask people what would you do, people say almost the most optimal solution you can do. When we test what they do, how they
But
behave in
again-
reality.
But what normally happens is that people are able to predict towards the
What
correct
others
direction,
do,
but
yes.
underestimate
Yes.
the correct direction.
Yes.
But again, we didn't ask here what people will do. We asked them to predict what our students did, and we actually give the money to the student who did the most accurate prediction. So they were incentivized to give accurate predictions. Okay. So I want to show you a different mechanism, and this mechanism is that you're doing bad and then you don't play with the ethical code, but instead you play with the focusing of your attention on the good deed of your action. So for example, on the benefit that you give to your friend, instead of thinking about, oh, I'm going to sign Panos and then I'm not a good person, I said, I'm a very good friend. I like to help to people like Panos. Okay?
What are people?
Yes.
I also think, so specifically with that example, I was thinking also that it would be very easy to rationalize that there are no victims there, that it doesn't hurt anyone or anything,
Yes.
you know?
Yes.
Whereas pushing someone off of the bridge is
Yes.
easily difficult.
So the victimize of the cheating is also a point that now under a lot of people investigate. Ori will talk about it, yes? And yes, some interesting ongoing work about it. Okay, so this is example from a website. I hope you don't familiar with this website. It's buy and sell academic papers to students. So you can sell your paper, you can also buy. And as you see, it's called e-cheat, but it's not cheating, it's collaborating. Yes? So of course it's a joke, but you will see that a lot of time this is a justification that people convince themselves that happened in real life, that I'm not cheating, I'm collaborating with my friend. So again, we use in this project the Mattresses Task, but I will show you immediately other method as well. And for example, what we did in this experiment, we want to look on how collaborative work or the group size affect our unethical behavior. So in this experiment, we have people who work individually, like in the other experiment, in control or in Schroeder condition. We have people who work in dyads. So it's two people. For example, you two, you have 5 minutes, you solve the blue mattresses task, you solve the green mattresses task, and then you shred together and you report together about your performance. And then I, as the experimenter, give for you two the money and you split it between 50-50 between you two. And then we have also a group of 3 participants. And we want to see that if we increase the group size, or in other words, increase the number of beneficiaries. Okay, so I bring more money, not only to myself, but also to my friend. Is it increase the magnitude of cheating? So this is the result. This is in the control groups when we verified. This is of course the average solution per individual, and we see that there is no difference between the 3 conditions. So if you work individually or you work for your friend, it's not change your performance or your real performance, but it's actually change how much you report. As you see, the individual cheat, but the dyad cheat more and the group cheat even more. And this is of course cheating per individual. Okay, so this is the average report, and average report in group of 3 is 14. Here we can explain it by 2 models. One is what we suggest, the justification model, that people focus on the benefit that they give to their friends. And when you have more beneficial, you give more benefits to your group. The other is what we call in psychology diffusion of responsibility. When we are more people in group, we can cheat more because the responsibility is actually diffused between us, and not all the attention will go on myself. And to distinguish between the two, what we did, we ran another experiment, but in this experiment we have only dyads. So we have only groups of 2 people, and then we manipulate the relationship within the group. So in one condition, the dyads, they couldn't talk at all. Okay, one worked, the other worked, and they were not allowed to talk. In the other condition, we give them the opportunity to talk. In the third condition, what we call friendly talking, we encourage them to know each other, and we give them to play a game for half an hour before they start the cheating task. What happened? What is your prediction? Who will cheat more? People who really know each other or become friends, or people who are strangers and not talk with each other?
People who know each other.
What?
People who know each other.
Okay,
Strong
so
social connection.
in fact what we found that as the social relationship become better, people cheat more. So when people are aligned with their friend, they are more. We have many experiments in behavioral ethics that show that when people are more similar to each other, when they share some common ideology and some common personality trait, for example, then they cheat more for each other. more than that, I want to show you. Yes.
Oh yeah, I just wanted to ask a short thing. In the other experiment we did, where people couldn't talk, couldn't they interact at all? Because it seems like obviously it would be very hard to cheat if you cannot make certain that your partner is not going to rat on you, but maybe that he is in on the cheating as well, right? Like you have to.
They still
establish a certain
cheat.
amount of.
Yes, they still cheat,
Okay.
but we have other conditions in different experiments when one of the participants solved the matrices like this, and we ask the other to stand like this and not talk, just to stand. Yeah? In this condition, they didn't cheat. So this actually encourage or signal monitoring. If someone is looking on you like this, this is your idea. So I want to ask you a question before we go, and it's actually an ethical question. Okay? We have also one method that we are doing, and actually to make discussion about this method, and instead of shred it, we ask people to put it in a recycle box, but without their names. Okay? So we ask people to put the mattresses task, because some of the reviewers doubt that we actually observe cheating. We actually invited this method, and what we are doing, we actually play with this number, for example. Okay? So we can put this number as a running number, and then you put it in a recycle box, not in a shredder, and then I can collect it after the experiment and match it to envelope with money. That on this envelope I have a PO box, and I can put on the PO box the same number like this number. Okay, so we call this method the matching method. Okay, so we don't know who is the cheater, but for example, if Catherine solved this and she has 54 here, and she took from her envelope $14, I can look on how many mattresses she solved and said, okay, the participant who took $40 solved only 12 mattresses, and he cheated us by 2 mattresses. Do you think it's ethical method to do or not?
What you're doing?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because you are checking that people are cheating, but you don't know who's cheating. And after all, they're submitting themselves to providing that data. You're not at any point suggesting that you're not going to check on that data.
Yes, but in fact, when we ask them, okay, trash it, we tell them, trash it in the recycle box, and some of them probably believe that if they put it in the recycle box without names, without identity, nobody can track it. But in fact, you are tracking.
No, but you can't connect between the person and the act.
Okay, so this is the main point here. Because if we could connect, then I think it was unethical method, and then it's what we call deception of participant. Because if I can know after the experiment that, for example, Catherine or X cheat for this magnitude, this is not ethical as experimenter, because I deceive my participant. But the most important thing is that we match, but we don't have any opportunity to know who is the real cheater. Yes.
Except of course if everyone cheats, then you will still know that partners did cheat.
Yes.
You just don't know how much.
Yeah, and according to what.
And we know that he cheats a little bit, but not exactly.
So there is a very clever guy at Duke University. I don't know how many of you are familiar. He is one of the fathers of decision making. His name is John Payne, and he told us we gave a talk about unethical behavior, and he told us, you just just taught me that there is a slippery slope, that people start from small cheating and then they commit much more stronger or increase their cheating over time. And we said, okay. And then he said, but you give them the first step in your experiment. So,
You say that you yourself are
By
on
the way,
right slope already.
yeah, so
this is also a slippery slope because now we, in some experiments they use a shredder that doesn't shred the paper. So people put the paper in the shredder, but it doesn't shred it, it just keeps it intact. So it's also a slippery slope. You start with a recycle bin and then you continue with the shredder that doesn't shred.
But strictly speaking, it is deception. Because the participants believe one thing and what happens is another thing.
Yeah, but
So that I think is clear.
we're in psychology, we can deceive ourselves.
But
we
you
don't
know-
know economics.
But you know, I gave a talk at Eve University, and a young student came to me and said, why don't you use the shredder that scan the page? Turned out, and he showed me in his mobile phone, that there is a shredder that shreds
As
it,
you shred.
but before he shreds, he scans it to the computer. this, I don't know how we didn't find
But
it.
it could potentially affect behavior because maybe I have the attitude that even if I cannot be identified, I don't want that it's known that somebody cheated the way I did. Because I can imagine the experimenter seeing this and being upset that somebody only solved 7 but reported 17. And this will happen, right?
Yes.
But I don't expect it to happen because I think it's shredded or in the bin. So in that sense, it can have effect. Personally, I don't think it's a large effect, but it's a possible effect.
One.
So this concern with checking whether the design is ethical or not, I would say when participants come to experiments, they have this sort of expectation that they're coming to an experiment, and actually sometimes they expect to be somehow deceived to one point, which sometimes generates weird behavior because they're trying to predict the deception and acting upon it when sometimes actually there's no deception and they're adding up on. So I don't know, I mean, it is deception, I agree, like there's no way you can not consider this deception, but on the other hand, you have to ponder what the effect, the potential noxious effects of this deception are, and whether participants are not exposing themselves to this kind of deception by being participants.
Yes, but luckily us in psychology or social science, you can deceive participant if you have...
Economics is also in social
in
sciences.
what?
Economics is in social sciences.
Yeah, no, but in economics
Allow you to
journal,
deceive
they don't consider papers that including deception of participants.
There are labs in
It-
the world that you cannot deceive.
Yeah.
One of these labs is here in Aarhus, the cognition and behavior lab. You cannot deceive because you would pollute the
Subject.
subject book.
Yeah.
And this is like very clearly written on the lab's website, and it's an economics lab, basically.
But I personally don't agree with this approach. Think about it on all the classic experiment of social psychology that, for example, in Milgram study that people electric shocked, confederate, and of course people suffered in this experiment, but it's taught us a very important lesson. And I prefer that people will suffer a little bit in experiment, but to avoid some scandals and what happened in the real world.
But Justin, do you have time for this? Because part of the concern is the suffering, like the unethical behavior towards the participants at that moment, like for example that somebody is suffering or somebody is uneasy because of a deception. But another concern is that it violates the integrity of the data.
Exactly.
That's completely another dimension to it.
That's a very
It's not that it's a bad thing, but it just means that it's people.
What do you mean by violence?
For example, now at Duke, we cannot run the dishonesty and morality experiments anymore because participants come in and they have run 20 experiments before. So basically, we have to go to another university because they are perfect.
Yeah, this would be true even if you didn't deceive them. You can exhaust your subjects pool if it's not big enough.
Yeah, but
And
not
you have
really.
too
If
many-
the other has all the time in his mind that what you test is something else from what you tell him that you test, that's like a big pollution.
Yeah.
It's not like that you bring them in and you test memory and you tell them, hey, I'll test memory, and then the other day you bring them in and you tell them, I'll test your synchrony. You don't deceive, they are not burned. Like, you know, they are two
Yeah,
different
but if
studies.
you
But if
all
all the
the
time, if you
time you
tell
don't
them I
deceive
bring you in and I test memory and then you publish and you say, hey, I didn't test memory. And then
no, but if you test memory and again you test memory and again you test memory and sometimes
But that's fine, because memory cannot
it's not
tell you.
fine because you know the subject said, hey, if I exhibit better memory, I can gain more money. So I go home and I start to study and download these
That's another problem.
methods
That's
to
not-
improve my memory.
that's
It's
So
not-
right.
I use the
Right.
same types
Right.
of experiments on the same,
But you know
the
it's not
same
really the
subject
same.
pool.
It's not really the
But
same.
it's still-
Bringing subjects in the,
The problem is that you use many experiments on a small pool of subjects.
that's a huge problem. That's yeah.
That's not a problem with deception, that's another problem with exhausting the subject pool and so on.
Yeah, but you need to deceive them well so they don't know how you deceive them so you don't affect their
And you need to publish 3
And
years
also
after
the
they
biggest
finish.
issue, the biggest issue is that they usually test, you know, different types of conditions. So the deception has the same effect on all conditions, and only the manipulation should affect the results.
Possibly, but that is a fancier argument.
And it's
vague
an
and
ideal
so on.
world, but you know, we are working in a real world.
Okay. I just want to show you also some
Yes.
post-experimental methods that we use. And for example, we can examine the guilt of participant and learn from this. And here, when we ask people after cheating for the benefit of other, for example, in this experiment with the group of 3, group of 2, so even though they cheat more, they feel less guilt about it. Why? Because when you benefit other people, you have a good justification. So this is according to our model, but of course, I will show you other method to actually trace guilt and understand what's happening there. So I want to move to another topic, and this is the topic in behavioral ethics that we look on the connection between pro-social behavior and anti-social behavior. And for example, the case of the relationship between cheating and donation. You know that donation become integral part of our society, and a lot of from pro-social behavior coming through donation. For example, this is a very respected charity organization in Israel. It's called Yad Sarah. And it was established by a man that became after the mayor of Jerusalem. And it's a very good organization. It's give medical aid to people, to old people, to young people, to needy families, and etc. But then it turned out that this mayor, when he became mayor of Jerusalem, he gave a lot of license to build some ugly building like this. You see that it's not connected to the environment, and it turned
You
out
see
that
it if you visit Israel, it's
Yeah.
this whole thing, it's very nice.
people bribed him, but he was convicted in the trial, and it turned out that all the money that they give to the bribery, they didn't give to his pocket. Rather, they contribute to this organization. So they contribute 2 million Israeli shekel to this organization. And then was the question, is this corruption? Is this unethical behavior? Of course, it's illegal, it's corrupted, but it shows you the relationship between good and bad. Okay? And we want to simulate this kind of behavior in the lab. So first I want to show you a short video. And this video is about conflict of interest. I give you an introduction to this video. It's a confession by a doctor in the US that she is actually used to either approved or reject medical application for insurance company. But it's turned out that this insurance company pay more when you reject. Okay? So they ask you to be professional, to be a very good doctor, but they pay you more if you reject the application. So I want to show you this confession.
In the healthcare industry who did have a conscience. Dr. Linda Pino, a former medical reviewer at Humana.
My name is Linda Pino. I am here primarily today to make a public confession.
You don't see
In
it?
the spring of 1986,
Where is it?
a man doesn't say
I don't know what to do.
Who invented this system?
So it's not so important. Okay, I will.
No, no, you can just go.
Okay, it's okay. No, leave it.
He destroyed it.
Understand.
But now we're intrigued. We want to see what you're talking about.
So I will tell you. No, what is this?
We want to see, Shahar.
More than a quarter of senators and congressmen have invested at least $196 million of their own money.
Okay. No, it's okay. But we don't see anything now. Guys, come here.
Wait. Let me fix it.
Okay. So, as I told you, the confessions, he said that she rejects an application, and then she didn't approve this medical procedure, and the man died. Okay? And then she understood that she worked under conflict of interest, because they asked her to be a medical doctor, and she has her ethical code as a medical doctor. But if she wants more work in this company, and if she wants to get the bonuses, she needs to reject as much as she can. And then it's actually forced her to reject much more than recommended by the medical situation. So this is exactly what we are doing in this task. Okay? It's called the DOTS task, and Guy will talk about it much deeper. But what we are doing actually, we are putting people under a conflict, okay? And this conflict is a conflict between to be accurate and to be honest. How we do it? We ask people to judge if there are more dots on the left side or more dots on the right side. And they need to click, okay? And if they click on the left, then they say there are more dots on the left. In the accuracy block, we pay according to correct response, so people get more money if they click on the correct response. But in this cheating block, what we are doing, we pay more money for correct, okay? For clicking on the right. So if you see, for example, in this screen that there are more dots on the left, and you click on the left, you lose money. It's exactly like this doctor. She needs to get the accurate decision, but they pay more for specific decision. Reject. Okay? So we induce this conflict in the lab, and we give many trials of this task. I want to show you how we use this task, for example, to study the connection between charity and cheating. So what we ask people in this specific experiment, it's to come into our lab and then to rate some political organization according to how much they support this organization. Okay? And then they play 100 trials on this task, and splitting the benefit between themselves and the specific political organization. So the screens look like this. You need to decide if there are more dots on the left or on the right, and then your money is splitting between you, what you earn, and how much you donate to Mahsom Watch organization. Okay, Mahsom Watch is a very left-wingy organization in Israel. So if you believe in the left-wing political goals, then you in the support condition. But if you are very right-wing, then you are in the opposed condition. Okay, then you have a conflict, because if you cheat, you increase your own benefit, but you also increase the benefit to political organization that you don't support. What is the actual result in this experiment? So again, when we look on the correct block on when people pay according to correct response, there is no effect between the condition. There is no difference between the condition. But when we look on the cheating response, on the condition that give people opportunity to cheat, we see that people cheat more to organization they support, cheat less to neutral organization, and don't cheat at all to organization that you oppose to. So, in fact, it's actually support what we call our justified dishonesty model. Why? Because when you have good justification, when you have good explanation to yourself why you are cheating, then you cheat more. But when you have, the story is not going in line with your explanation or in line with your belief, then you don't cheat at all. Yes?
Would you expect that if you even more oppose or get a stronger opposition to an organization, that you would actually get a negative effect?
This is what we hope to do.
Great. This is what we hope when we design this experiment. But in fact, what you are saying that instead of not cheating at all, like here, you can purposely click on the left and minimize the incentive to the organization, but then you actually lose money from your pocket. You pay in order to harm to other people. And I don't have a lot of time, I just want to show you the Panos story to the end. So this story, one day God came down to Panos and said, Panos, I will grant you one wish. Anything you want, Panos, it will be yours. Okay? But only under one condition, the God added. Anything I give you, I will be granted to your neighbor, Guy, as you will see, twice over. I will give you 1 Echo shoes, one guy will get 2 Echo shoes. Okay, I will give you 1 car, guy will get 2 cars. Okay? And then Panos said, what can I answer to the God? What can I ask? Yeah? And then he said, okay, this is Guy. Okay, to the God, take out one of my eyes. Okay, you understand the wisdom of this story.
No, we don't. You have to explain more. You have 1 hour.
Okay, so the wisdom of this story is exactly what we did. The wisdom of this story is that people are willing to pay out of their pocket in order to harm a person that they compare to. But it turned out not true in our experiment. That people, the solution of people is not to cheat at all, but also not to cheat on the other side. But we want to exactly examine when people are willing to harm other or to cheat to the other side. And then we run another experiment, and in this experiment we did the same manipulation with the support, neutral, and oppose, but here 100% of the money went to donation, so people get a show-up fee, but their performance or their incentive for performance, everything is going to donation. what happened here, you can see that here it's replicate in the support and neutral. People cheat more in the support, less in the neutral, but in the oppose, they cheat to the other side. Okay? So it's also show us that people really understand our task, that actually their cheating is much more warrant than we think, and people understand that they can minimize the benefit of the organization by clicking purposely on the left.
But this is punishment without self-harm, right?
Yes.
Whereas it has been shown that, for example, in experiments on cooperation, Ernest Fair and Gatcher and others, that people sometimes also punish with self-harm, even when they harm
Yes.
themselves, even when they lose points. And,
Okay. But
it's interesting that you didn't find it. I would expect that you.
We expected that. But it shows also that cheating is very cheap.
yes, but the harm here is about cheating, and maybe cheating is a very complicated behavior. What we think happened here is that people said, okay, I don't want to cheat to the other side because then I will be both cheater and also lose money.
Punisher, right?
So the compromise is, okay, at least I will be an honest person.
Doesn't it mean that some people cheated in one direction and some in the other? The fact that the average is the same? Because otherwise, why would the average be the same? I mean, it could be.
Yeah.
It could be zero cheating, but it could be both directions.
Yeah, but it's not in line with most of the experiments showing that most people cheat, at least by the.
Why? Could be that some people cheat a little bit upwards, a little bit, and some people a little bit downwards.
Yeah, but it doesn't make sense. Why do they cheat to benefit something they oppose?
They also benefit themselves. They don't oppose it that much, or just a little bit. So
Yeah, but it's not.
It's
Yes.
important.
to
How
social
did you ask
motivation.
how much they oppose? I think that's also.
We asked them to choose one organization they oppose the most, one organization they support the most, and one that is neutral, and then they were related three different,
Okay.
randomly three different conditions, one in which they got the organization they oppose to, one organization they support, one organization they are neutral.
I think that it would be interesting if you had asked them on a scale, how much do you oppose that organization from 1
We
to
have
10?
this data.
And
Yeah,
then
we asked them
where's
how
it?
left and
Right.
right wing they are.
Right, and then try to see if there is something that we address.
Yes.
So could there be an issue in terms of the gain for yourself contra the gain for the organization? So the effect of the gain for the organization, when it is the same as the one you get, it's very small compared to their actual value. That also goes for the loss. So one could also hypothesize that it might have to do with the fact that if you cheat in the opposed condition, the effect for you is you will say, this is large for me, I could actually gain a bit of money by doing it right, but if it doesn't really have a big effect on the actual, the donation is not very high. So if we said that the boundaries for donation contra what you gain yourself were different, so you would gain, say, what you got, but they would get $20 compared to 20 cents for you, then you might see another effect, because then you would actually think, it might, then you will have conflict of interest, right?
Yeah.
Or you might increase the conflict of interest. So that's
you
our
can,
relationship between value for you contra value, the relative value you do.
Yeah. What we can do, we can play with the percentage, but meanwhile we did 50-50, or all to yourself 50-50, and 100% to the organization. What you are suggesting, we can play with this.
Yeah.
For example, 90 to the organization and 10 to you. But still, we are also restricted with the amount of money.
Of course, but still, that might also be an answer for why you don't see a difference.
Sure. Okay, so I need to summary. What? Okay. So what I show you that when their actions are undeniably unethical, people experience ethical dissonance and then use the social context to justify or distance themselves from misdeed. They engage or explain the situation as pro-social behavior. I didn't talk about it, I didn't have time, but sometimes we also present ourselves as super honest, and in order to distance the unethical behavior from ourselves, we judge other people very harshly. So we have also experiment on this, that we show that after people cheat, they become a harsher judge of other people's questionable behavior and not leniency. In fact, it's a very interesting phenomenon that exactly after you cheat, when you are still hot with your cheating, sometimes you become more lenient to other people because you want other cheater to be with you. But after a while, after a distance of time, then you become more harsher toward other people. So we have also this method when we give to people to judge other people's unethical behavior.
And that reminds us a lot of ultra-religious people, right? That
Yes.
their job is to figure out what the problem
We
is.
have also experiment that will be very interesting to Panos, that about confession. What happened? What is the relationship between confession and cheating, or not confession, only confession specifically, but in general, what we call moral cleansing strategy. For example, when we acknowledge our cheating and we ask the God or any other entity for forgiveness, what happened to the magnitude of cheating? Do we cheat more after this or less? What do you think? What is your prediction?
Right after, I would say at some point after you will start cheating again more. That's the point of cleansing.
Yeah.
Use of Payne.
He has a good intuition. Yes, so the main findings there is that right after the confession we reduce after our cheating, we turn over a new leaf and we want to keep this page white, but after a while we start to restart our cheating cycle. And also another question, if people know that they have the opportunity to confess, do they cheat more? And this is still under investigation. So I will just finish with the concept that I think you will see it also in other works today, about the ethical dissonance. And what we think in our theory, in our group, is that what we call anticipate ethical dissonance or experience ethical dissonance is actually the gatekeeper of our morality, because guilt is a very important emotion, and if people can expect their guilt, or you can educate them to predict their own guilt, then they will commit less unethical behavior. But the problem is that justified dishonesty, or all the story that we are very good into telling to ourselves, actually diffuse the ethical dissonance. And in many social contexts, the correlation between psychological arousal or guilt and cheating depends on people's ability to justify. So if we want to revise people's unethical behavior and to encourage moral behavior, we need to block this route of justification. We need to educate people to better predict their ethical dissonance or their guilt, and this is for a different talk, and we will continue to talk about it. Yes?
Have you done any research distinguishing between guilt and shame in any of your experiments?
No, we are not going into this to emotions. There are not a lot of work about emotion and cheating, but it's still open. Yes.
I think I understand the interest of studying this in terms of ethics, but the way I see it, this reveals a lot about the dynamics of in and out group, and it could be maybe, less ambiguous or more precise to call this counter-normative behavior instead of unethical, because unethical supposes that you're taking a standpoint, whereas I would say my intuition is
normative it's not a good word to use. Don't try to use it in paper, because normative in our field is usually reflected the formal model. So for example, rational perspective is a normative model for financial decision, for example. Okay? So normative stand specifically in our field not to the norm behavior, but to the formal model, to the prediction of the optimal decision. Okay. So normative it's not a good, but antisocial or unethical. And you will see that in our field a lot of scholars use cheating, dishonesty, fraud, interchangeable. There are no clear definition to each of these.
The point is that if their ability to justify predicts their cheating, the extent of their cheating, then maybe it's not justification. Then it's because of their worldview. It's because they see these not as unethical, as agents. But yeah, it's just like semantics, I guess.
Yes.